Hey guys, I feel like it's been so long, but I've just been busy and I can't figure out if that's just so I can stay grounded right now. Like in spirit's intentionally keeping me busy so I can stay grounded. Otherwise, I'd be floating up in a la la land all day long. But anyways, it's just been busy for me and my family, so I haven't been able to get on, but I do have been feeling pulled to like be a part of this support system during everything that's going on right now. I had the craziest dream the night before last, and it was so vivid. And then, of course, I forgot majority of the dream, but the one part I didn't forget was the tail end of it. And the scene was, it was like I was like, you know, on by an ocean, and there's a beach, and I was in the water, and I was just like leisurely in the water, like with there was like one person close to me, but I just don't recognize or remember who it was. And then there was another person that was like a little bit closer to the beach. And so we're just like, you know, leisurely playing. And then suddenly I see like the head of a hippo. You know how it just brings up its nostrils and its little ears and its eyes, like pop up. And like, I wasn't like fully lucid in the dream, but I was lucid enough to say to myself, why the hell is there a hippo here? There shouldn't be a hippo right here. Like, hippos don't belong here geographically. Like, you know, I had enough sense. I was lucid enough to be like, what? And so, because you know how almost if you become too lucid and you don't like still feel into the energy of the dream, your vibration it can like change, and it'll wake you up sometimes or bring you out of it, you know? And that's why it's like when you are lucid in a dream, it's cool to like just try to practice how to be in that space. If you start overthinking when you're lucid in a dream, that's what brings you out of the lucid dream. So it's like me and Lance talk about this all the time because he always lucid dreams like every single night mostly. So yeah, he's always been that way. He's a perfect person to have these like conversations because like he has a lot of experience, you know. But anyways, back to the hippo. I was like, oh my gosh, you know. So when something's that obvious in a dream and then you like remember it when you wake up, it's just because spirit is like, I'm trying to tell you something, you know. Like the things that like say you're like you do some healing in your dream space, but it's not necessarily like you need to wake up and remember the whole dream and try to analyze it and like waste all this time and energy when really it was just like you passively healing in your dream space, and like you don't want to wake up and put all this effort into it. The whole point of like the benefits of like healing in your dream space is like you don't have to do anything. You just be and set that intention before you go to sleep, you know. But anyway, so the hippo is so, I was like, how can, initially before I looked up the meaning of hippo, usually I'll look it up, something that happens in my dream, and then I'll like, you know, I'll scroll through a couple sources, but I don't actually open the link yet. And then like spirit will lead me to what link to open, and that's like the information I need. That's how I do it personally, just because I'm not the type of person who wants to click on a million things and then take in too much information. I just want to be led to what spirit wants to say to me, you know? So I was like, hippo. I was like, initially, like even in the dream, I started feeling a little nervous, even though the hippo seemed calm. It didn't look like it wanted to be aggressive. Hippos are like one of the most dangerous animals in the world. So initially I was like, wow. And then I remember this. I know this is something spirit's trying to tell me, like what good can come from the spirit animal. But like even like the spirit animals that have the 3D stereotypes, they have such deep, powerful meanings when you look up what they actually mean, like in a spirit animal book or whatever, you know. So I look it up, and it is so spot on to where, like, what I needed to hear, what everybody needs to hear, and just, like, where everyone's at right now. It's even funny because I've had people ask me, like, what have you done to prepare for right now? And every time someone asks me that, like, a little whisper in my ear is just, like, your spiritual preparation, your emotional, not control. I don't want to say control because that just sounds, like, resistant. your ability to be conscious of like your emotions and how you react to things, and like how you can handle the concept of death and all these things that we're going through in this world right now. That's the kind of preparation that Spirit's saying is the most important right now. Everybody wants to think about the physical. What if the lights go out? Like anything that happens in the physical, I feel, will be short-lived. But in any way that you actually prepare isn't necessarily preparing you for disaster. It's preparing you to be more independent, to maybe go a little more off-grid in the way you live. Maybe you do use your electricity, but you go off-grid with your heating source and your, you know what I mean? Like just becoming more independent, you know? So if you prepared physically, which I did too, like I have a family, and you know, it just is like, you don't have to think about it. You just have a few things if you need it. And that's that. Then you don't have to think about it, right? But mainly those things are just preparing you to become more independent, become more connected with nature, to learn how to do things and have skills. So anything, like even doing the research, just learning how to research something, like think about like every single thing you plant in a garden. And just like every single person, every plant needs something different. So you would have to put in that research to understand, like, okay, what type of nutrients does this plant need? What type of soil does it need to be grown? How deep does it need to go? You know what I mean? It's not as simple as just like digging a hole and plopping a seed in it. You know, you have to nurture it. These are skills that we have lost. This is our organic nature to know these things and be more connected to nature. And we've lost that. And so when we are preparing for disaster in the physical, it's the disaster of the matrix of this AI system that we've been attached to. And it's just like, oh my gosh, I don't even know how to be my organic self. And we go into preparing mode. It's just like, learn how to research, learn how to do more, have more skills and do more things. And it will come naturally to you because that is your organic nature. To be independent, to go do things for yourself, to provide for your family, to provide for you, not to be stressed out that the government might take your job away because you're so dependent on it. If you had these skills, if you had this independence, if you were connected to your organic nature, those fears wouldn't even exist. But we are so programmed from the days we were born to be in this 3D AI inorganic matrix. And so it's a huge shift for people. It's a huge shift for me. And I've been fairly connected my whole life in different forms, obviously programmed, but it's still a huge shift, right? And so we have to understand these things. But what Spirit really wants people to know is being spiritually prepared is the most important thing. Because what you're going to see in the physical is going to bring up these trauma responses. And if you're not spiritually prepared, if you haven't like shedded a lot of things, unconscious habits and thought forms and belief systems, and you haven't, rewired your brain to think in a more organic way that's connected to source and connected to what's of the highest good of all, if you haven't done these things, it's gonna be very uncomfortable. And it's gonna be very uncomfortable to watch other people go through it too, because even if you've done the work to some degree, that you just become more sensitive, right? And then the energies come in and they activate us. Even if we're choosing to stay in ego, we're still being activated, because when you're bombarded with plasma energy coming off the sun with solar flares and now CMEs, like you can't get away from it. You're on Gaia. Okay. It's affecting you. It's affecting every plant, every blade of grass, everything. And it's all interconnected. And the more that the vibration raises, the more we're more conscious of the fact that it is. So everything's being affected, right? And we're becoming more conscious of it. And it's literally in the physical we're being able to become more conscious of it. And so it's getting to the point of even these systems and the breakdown of the entire system is becoming so obvious. Like the veil isn't there anymore. Everybody's saying the veil's thinning. It's just peeling off the layers. There isn't really a veil. And it's scary for people who don't understand how this universe works to be in it. And then it's scary, even if you know how this universe works, to watch people have to go through it, have to like fight their ego, have to make these decisions that are like life and death, and then just, you know, selling their soul for a fucking donut, you know? And to take it so lightly and to just not question. I'm not even gonna go down that route, but you feel what I'm saying. Be spiritually prepared is what Spirit wants us to know. But let's go back to the hippo, because it has to do with preparedness as well. And this is what happened when I clicked the link that I was drawn to. It said, this is what it said about the hippo. It says, great problem solving skills, confidence, self-reliance, and strength. It's like, okay, I'll take that during this time. But this is what got me. The hippo shows up in your life to let you know you have all the resources you need to overcome the most difficult challenges on your path. You're up to the challenge and will find your way through no matter what. So, I mean, how much more validation do we need? It's about the spiritual preparedness. And the fear comes from the observation of the physical. The fear comes from what's going to happen in the physical. Nobody's really afraid of the spiritual because they're so fucking disconnected from it, right? The only people who are like, you know, the people who are truly conscious of like how the spiritual world works, that's why they're big on protecting yourself and just like they're very conscious of the energy they put out there and how they connect with others, and how every little thing that we do is connected to everything around us. And even when we go to the grocery store and we walk in, and people can feel that light radiating. And for somebody who's highly programmed and been in the matrix their whole life and just like stuck, like so stuck, like just fucking watches the news every day, like it's like they can't go there. But now everybody's got no choice but to go there. It's about to fucking go there like it's never gone there before. And so we need to be spiritually prepared. And what the hippo is telling me in my dream is that we've got this. All is well. But we just have to understand where other people are at. I had another person, I just jotted down a few, because a lot of people ask me questions and I try to get to them in my videos. But I also want to stay kind of relevant to what we're talking about and what Spirit's bringing through. And I'm just going to like do what answer what I feel called to answer, if you understand what I mean. But anyways, somebody said, how can we speak truth and plant seeds when it seems like people feel like they don't have a choice? The programming makes them feel powerless. Like, here's a good example of like people feeling powerless in programming. Say somebody is in a marriage and they're miserable. They know this isn't their person. They're working on themselves. The other person just like can't see their own stuff, right? But they have kids. But they are married. Like, they'll come up with every excuse in the world as to why they can't leave that situation. How they feel powerless because of this programming. I mean, there's a million reasons why people wouldn't leave in a situation like that. And I've been in that situation, so I know how it feels to feel all that heavy pressure from family and society and just like the way we're trained to think that life should look like by the Matrix. And so that's an example of how people like literally feel powerless. They feel like they could never make that big scary leap jump because they don't know what the hell is on the other side of it. And that's kind of like where people are at right now. But the thing of it is about planting seeds right now, it's not so much about going and getting in people's face who don't like understand that there are freedoms are being stripped away and stuff like that. It's more about just like putting your perspective out there, but not necessarily engaging with people who disagree with you. Because the fact of the matter is, 9 times out of 10, they've already made a decision that is, you're telling them all the big scary things about a decision they've already made. So how is that helping anybody? It's just really instilling more fear and then adding resistance, because they're throwing energy at you, which isn't good. It's resistant because they're resistant to what you're saying. Do you understand? So it's really just about, having your perspective, maybe on your social media or however you want to do it. You don't even have to do that. All you have to do is be sovereign within yourself. Just say like how you feel, But when it comes to people, it's like you have to understand where they are at. If we just want to continue to judge them for the decisions they're making, like for me, it's like if somebody chose to do something that I believe is, selling their soul or a death sentence or whatever, y'all know what I'm talking about. That was their path. That was their path. And then they're going to have that life review after they transition, and they're going to see. And that is like a lesson that they're going to, bring back. If this whole karmic loop thing, I don't know where people go after or what the process is of that. I don't necessarily think we always just come back as a human, or we always just come back to this planet, or there wouldn't be humans on other planets. You know what I mean? Like, I'm very open. It's so funny. I did my numerology, and I am, my signs are in Libra, but balance is so crazy to the point where there's these lines you can get if you chart your numbers, right? So I got the line of the skeptic, but I also got the line of the spiritualist, which are like polar opposites. The skeptic is the one who questions everything, right? And the person who's deep in their faith is just, goes with the flow, right? And I have both those lines in my chart. It's that balance. It's totally that balance. And that's why I don't like to get too deep just in the spiritual, even though I could talk about spiritual stuff all day, because that is the problem with a lot of spiritual teachers, is that everybody ends up ungrounded. We take in all this information and then we don't integrate it in our physical lives, like interacting with our environment. And that's not healthy. That's not healthy. That's like spiritual bypassing on steroids, and then nobody actually is growing. Just keep going through these uncomfortable cycles. Like, I can't understand why this keeps happening and this keeps happening. And it's just like, because you're never actually facing it. Every time it comes up to look at, it's just like, what can I go do to just be positive and pretend it doesn't exist? And that's why that's very harmful. That's very harmful. It's good to be able to transmute something, but there's a difference between bypassing and transmutation and alchemization. Alchemization is where you sit with it, you feel it, and then you rewire your brain to make a different decision about it, to the point where when it comes back around, you face it again. It feels a little yucky that next time around, even though you already alchemized it, because you're going to be tested. And then you do it again, and you do this, and you keep doing it every time it comes back around, to the point where when it comes back around, you're not feeling those emotions come up, because you've completely released it. Everybody thinks you just you can, but most people aren't to that level. Like I hate when people anything's possible. You can do all these things in terms of alchemization and transmutating energy, but most people aren't to the level where they're just bang, instantaneous healing, bang, instantaneous, where they just, you know what I mean? This is a fucking process. We've gone through thousands of years of trauma, and we're clearing bloodlines. It's work. Nobody wants to do the fucking work. You want to help the whole world? Heal yourself. Look at how you're a jackass in life. You know what I'm talking about? We all have our shit. That's the biggest thing that has people stuck. I asked Spirit this. What is the biggest thing? Because I'm like, how can I help people? What has people stuck the most? And it always comes back to this. People don't see their own shit. They're not conscious of their own behaviors. and how they impact other. They're not conscious of other people's behaviors. That's your intuition. That's developing yourself emotionally. It's recognizing cues. It's just noticing everything. That's what ultimate connection is. You notice everything. Everything is available to you. Every piece of information, every timeline, every past life, every future life, and it's all happening right now, and it all can be, what's the word I'm looking for? I have a couple words coming to mind, but that's not quite it. It's like there's not a word to fit it. It all can be impacted by you right now. Anything in the future or the past, because it's all happening at the same time. That's why we could come from the future and help our own selves. And that's really hard to get your mind around because it's so fucking quantum. I can barely get my mind around it, but it's like when you're connected, you have this inner knowingness. It's like when you're given a ton of evidence where something is so obvious, and so you get that feeling like, yeah, I'm confident in this. That's how I fucking feel about some of these things and some of this information I get from spirit. I get that same feeling, like that type of confidence, you know? And trust me, there's a hella skeptic in me. When I went to university, I was a fucking atheist. Like skeptic to that level. When I was at my most disconnected point in life, I was an atheist. Think about that. It tells you something. But once I got very connected, I was balanced. I became so balanced. And so it's like I'm still learning all these things about myself. Like, never stop trying to figure yourself out, because that's how you really so for me, I thought that I had some type of emotional disorder, because I would just be like happy and then pissed, or I would get triggered about something and then I can recover so fast. Like, I'll be mad for a millisecond and then I'm just like, it was like it never happened. So like in my brain, I was like, what is that? It's like bipolar, but it wasn't that, because bipolar is like not that. It was like I couldn't figure it out. And so then I start looking in, but it's been like my whole life, ever since I was a kid. It's the trauma. I'm sure the frustration is linked to the trauma, but it's also in my numbers. It's also in my chart. It's also in these. That was the only other line I had. I had the skeptic, the spiritualist, and then line of frustration. I was like, oh, okay, that shit makes sense now. But yeah, I forget where I was going with that. But the point of the matter is, it's like as you uncover these things about yourself, you start to recognize more about yourself. Like, I recognize that I didn't have some fucking emotional disorder. Like, literally, even my personality type, my zodiac signs, my astrology chart, all my numerology, all of it is literally to a fucking T my personality, how I show up in the world. And it's like and then I see it with my kids. I see it with other people. I'll run the numbers on their charts. And it's like, the shit is almost undeniable. You know what I'm saying? And the skeptic in me is like, it wants to pick it apart. It wants to see how the fuck could that be possible? You know what I'm saying? But then the realist in me is like, you have all these case studies. Thousands and thousands of years of people choosing when they wanted to be born, and then all of a sudden their personalities line up with exactly this system. Like, come on, you know what I mean? And it's just like, when people start waking up to these things, when it just becomes so undeniable. You want to know when it came undeniable for me? And this relates to that question about how are people going to come out of their programming. They need to start, because they have no choice but to interact with all this plasma coming onto the planet. It's going to affect them. They're going to become more aware. They're going to start dabbling into stuff. So when it became so obvious for me, I started watching all these documentaries and videos on past life regression. And I wasn't like convinced yet. You know, I was a huge skeptic. And so I was like, fuck it. I'll do my own. Because like, I'll call myself out if my brain, I feel like I'm bullshitting, right? But I did my regression. It's like the most watched video on my YouTube channel. And it was so detailed. It was so like, I can't even make this shit up, you know? That And then I found myself in history. Like, I literally, the details that came through in my visions, I did my own regression by myself. I literally found myself in history. I know I've told this story before, but like, when that happened, I swear to God, I've never had goosebumps like that, except for one other time. I had another crazy synchronicity that was just like scary. Like, what the hell just happened, you know? But goosebumps everywhere. And it's like, people need to have those experiences. But they'll have them because they're going to start getting curious. They're going to start looking for things. Like what happened to you, and a lot of people, you know, when they start getting curious and then they start realizing some of this shit is true, and it starts like activating their DNA is activating, this remembering is activating, and then it's just going down one rabbit hole after another, and then eventually the programming starts shedding and everyone's well on their way, and hopefully they don't get stuck in the spiritual community in spiritual bypassing mode and live their life there, because that's not a good place to be. But hopefully people will kind of understand more, like, don't pressure people about waking up, because they're gonna, just like we did. It has to be from them. You know, you can plant a seed, but always be respectful. Like, how are we showing the light if we're so aggressive towards people making dumbass choices right now? Just be respectful. Just be like, look, it's not that I care that you want to do this or make the decisions you make. I just care that you have the choice to make those decisions. This is about freedom. This isn't about the fact that you want to make unhealthy decisions. We have been going through life not giving a shit about everyone making unhealthy decisions this whole time. Okay? It's about choices. It's about freedom, you know? So just be respectful, though, because, you know, people aren't going to want to gravitate towards freedom and towards you know, revealing the truth and actually detach from their programming if they see us acting like schmucks and assholes. We're the ones that have to say, hey, we're all in this together. Let's have some respect. And guess what? If they made those decisions, they're going to have to lay in that fucking bed that they made. So why the fuck would we make it worse by letting them know that they made a shitty decision? You understand? Like, just put yourself in somebody's shoes. It's so easy to judge and point the finger, but at the end of the day, it's just like us not being ready to handle that. Like, we have to start practicing that. I know it's not freaking easy. I'm not a people-y person. I have, like, there's no point in me having a wedding because there will be no bridesmaids because I don't have friends. Like, I don't want to, and I'm not people-y, but at the same time, I have respect. And you know, and that's, a lot of respect has been lost in the process of them inverting the organic ways of being, the tribal ways of being, well, wanting us to be on technology and looking at a screen as much as humanly possible, so we can be disconnected from each other. A text message and all that shit, like, it's so disconnecting. You can't even read the energy on someone's face. Like, even on the phone is more connected than a freaking text or something. And I'm guilty as anyone else. I hate when people call, and I'd rather text because I'm sensitive and I need my space and I don't want anyone to drain my energy. You know what I mean? Like, it's just an empath thing, but that's what they want. They want us to be disconnected. They don't want us to hear each other's voices and feel each other's energy, because then we might connect. We might feel like empathy towards one another. But if we're disconnected and we're just typing behind a screen and coming at each other all the fucking time, it's achieving exactly what they want. All they have to do is put a few articles out and everyone shares them and everyone's going at each other. Like, come on, we're fucking grown adults. Let's see through this stuff. Let's see through it. And you know what? If you do want to talk about something, like, talk about things like what I'm talking about right now. Like talk about how, we got to talk to each other about how we interact with each other. We have to talk to each other about things that we notice that we normally don't talk about, because that is where we're disconnected. It's just like, everybody always wants to put on this fucking mask. They go out and they're around people and they just show them the person they think they want to see. And it's so, the whole, like, thought of that is just, ugh. That's why I don't fucking socialize, because I can't handle watching people be fake all the time. Not that everyone's fake. It's just like this way of being. It's like how people, it's like you go, say you go into a tribe in the middle of the jungle. Think about how those people present themselves. And then come see us. It's just like, it reminds me of, what was that movie that Jim Carrey did? Was it The Truman Show? Where he was like in this isolated island town, and he wasn't allowed to leave it, and then he started to realize he was trapped there, and the whole thing was like a video about, it was like a TV show about him, and he didn't know he was trapped there in this light. It was so weird. But like, our world really isn't that much different from that. That's why, like people, like, you know, afraid to leave a marriage, or afraid to lose their job, or afraid to make a big scary change even though they're in a situation they don't want to be in. It's like not wanting to leave the island on the Truman Show, just wanting to stay in your perfect little fantasy land where you can pretend you're happy and wear the mask, but you're really fucking not. You're really not, you know? It's wild. It's wild. And what's crazy is, like, the people who wear the mask the most are the ones who do the most fucked up shit behind closed doors. And then they'll show up and they'll be like head of the school board, or like a politician, or just like, you know, the snootiest people do the grimiest shit and then show up and act like they don't do shit. I don't like that stuff. And, you know, usually I don't talk about that because I don't like to ruffle people's feathers, but it's the facts. Like, it's the shit I observe and I don't say. Like, sometimes I don't go near as raw in terms of what I say on YouTube as I do in real time talking to somebody I'm close to, like Lance. Like, at all. Because if I went there, like, I would trigger so many fucking people at once. I probably wouldn't have a YouTube channel anymore. But it's like, that's the weird, tough love side of me. I was raised by my dad, who is so blunt, so matter of fact, so, like, you know, just like, I don't even know. He's very authoritarian. He's very, like, and I have that in me too. And then I have, I'm like a communicator, and I have a lot of masculine energy. So sometimes it comes off insensitive. So, like, for me, my big challenge, especially as a life path 1, is to become more sensitive, to become more, even though I'm a sensitive person, but mostly, like, in my shadow, it just comes out as anger. But when I'm connected to source, it comes out as love and caring and understanding, you know, where somebody's coming from. And that's what this whole thing that I'm talking about is to begin with. It's about understanding that people are where they are. Even if they're making choices that scare the living shit out of you, don't scare the living shit out of them just because you know they're making a shitty choice, because that's their path. And you gotta, like, just love people for where they are. That is gonna be the most challenging lesson. And then be able to handle the emotional stress of their consequences, because we're gonna feel it too. So, emotional preparedness, but the hippo says you're prepared. So have no worries. But yeah, that's I just wanted to touch base with you guys and show a little support. And yeah, Lance had to go to Virginia on Thursday because his dad got rushed to ICU for blood clots in his lungs. Thankfully, he's responding to the medication that's kind of like breaking them up. So that's very positive news, but it's just like, you know, it just feels like the beginning of something that is not going to end in terms of, like, people we care about not being well, you know? And so it was kind of like a little reality check for our family and the whole emotional preparedness aspect of everything. So, but his dad is doing better, so that's positive news. But I just want you guys to know, like, I'm here. I support you. I'm a busy mom at the same time. But don't worry. You are prepared. Just get right with yourself. you know? Just bring, like, don't be afraid to take care of yourself and put shit off right now. Not the most important thing is you, because physically, mentally, emotionally, this shit is going to hit everybody. So self-care is number one. And then just understand that everybody needs self-care right now. So if somebody's struggling and they're projecting on you, understand where they're coming from. Best advice I could give. I fucking love you guys and hope you have an amazing weekend, and just like be creative and keep the fucking vibe high. Okay? Good vibes.